Hi, Bruno Jr. here. Our podcast, Busting Addiction and Smiths, is sponsored by SafeHouseRehab.com. SafeHouse believes that traditional treatments fall short of the needs of clients who face the modern problems of addiction. Modern problems need modern solutions. Multiple addictions, multiple relapses, multiple triggers, and cheaper and more powerful street drugs set up unprecedented challenges facing treatment centers. What is needed is a more sophisticated approach, a better way forward. There are 3 reasons to choose our progressive modern treatment program. 1, a more sophisticated intake process. 2, technology proven to enhance recovery. And 3, the most robust aftercare program in our sector. To learn more, visit us at SafeHouseRehab.com. Hi, I'm Bruno Jr., and I want to share with you my journey of 27 years, but I'll start this part of my journey with my first attempt at sobriety in July of 1992 when I'm sitting in my office at a ad agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was a great job, by the way, one of the best in the city of its type. And the CFO, Larry, and my boss came up to me and said, "Hey, you have time for a cup of coffee across the street?" And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh. Because if they wanted to meet with me, or any of them, they'd meet right there in the office. So there was something to walking across the street to the diner and sitting down and, quote, having a cup of coffee. So coffee comes to chat. We'd like to ask you a question. Do you think you're drinking too much? So I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, all right, I can't say no and deny it because they know it, and I can't say yes too strongly because then I might get fired for being a drunk. And I said, yeah, it's possible I'm drinking too much. So that was kind of a slippery answer. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you get a hold of the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, and they'll connect you to somebody who can help. So I did that, kept working. The storm was over for a while, and I went to see a very lovely, talented, and competent psychiatrist lady. So we started talking, and I thought, okay, I think I'm going to quit drinking. So I decided to quit drinking, and I went to a few AA meetings, but I thought it was okay to smoke pot. Every Friday, I had a meeting with a psychiatrist, and I started drinking after that during the holidays. So let's say that I met my psychiatrist in November or December. I started drinking around then, and I went to see her every Friday. And every Friday I would bring her a new symptom of insanity, and it was befuddling her. One Friday it was serious depression. The next Friday it was rage. The next Friday it was anxiety. The next Friday it was obsessive compulsive disorder, which was huge and ever present. I was obsessed over a woman that I had fallen in lust with. She was married, so there was a lot of sneakiness and lying going on. And one day she said, I'm going to prescribe something to relieve your OCD. I think that's a major problem for you. All right, fine. So I don't know if it was Xanax or whatever it was. So I got the prescription filled, and let's say I took it on a Wednesday, and then I had 2 days of the meds or 3 days. I went to see her on Friday again. And she says to me, well, how are the meds doing? Hopefully. I said, I think they're terrible. I think my head's going to explode. They're not only not helping, it's making things really worse. She says, you're not drinking, are you? I said, of course I'm drinking. You know what? That was the first time in 6 months, 20 some odd visits that I told her what I was really doing. And so what was I really doing? And so what I was really doing was I was still working. That was before they fired me. And at 5:01, and I didn't drink during the day because I was afraid I'd never make it back. I'd smell the booze or whatever. So I was at least clever enough for that part. 5:01, I walk caddy corner across the street and have 2 vodka doubles at the bar. I'd walk across the street, get into my truck, drive 15 minutes north along the lake toward my apartment in Shorewood, Wisconsin. On the way there, I'd stop at the Village Tavern and have, it's called the Village Tavern, and I had 2 more vodka doubles. All right, so now I got 4 drinks in me. And the next door is a liquor store, and I'd buy a bottle of wine, and if I was short on vodka, I'd buy some of that too. A few blocks later, I'm parked, by my apartment. And I had a first floor in a duplex. It was perfectly nice apartment. I could still afford it. 11 minutes from work. And I would go home, I would make dinner, and I hardly ever ate out, because I want to be at home drinking a bottle of wine, taking some nips of vodka, and smoking some dope. And then by the time I was done around midnight or 1, I'm so screwed up, my head is spinning, I have to take codeine pills to knock myself out to go to sleep. Now, I got the codeine for next to nothing because I'm from Ontario, and in Ontario, Canada, where my brother and my mom live, you could go to the drugstore and just go up there, and if you're 18 years or older, ask for a bottle of CCCs, which is caffeine, codeine, and something else. And you could get a bottle of 250 pills for about $12, something like that. So I would stock up on codeine and drive back, and I had all the codeine I wanted. And usually I only used it, like this is selective drug use, drug management, I only used it basically to go to sleep. I also used it before a hockey game, so that if I got hit, I wouldn't feel it too much. I remember one time I was so high, I was the sixth man on the ice, which is like a cardinal sin, and they booted me off the ice and then off the team, suspended me off the team for a few games. So I was mortified. You asshole! Stuff like that. As if hockey players play by the rules. So shortly after that incident where I admitted what I was doing, she said to me, you know what, you better check yourself in before you check yourself out. She could see that I was circling the drain. I didn't see it, but she was afraid for me, one way or another. Insanity, suicide maybe, although I was never overtly suicidal. I never expressed, nor did I have that intent. Hardly ever, I would say ever. Though it was self-destructive. That same week I got fired. So up until that point in time, if you, Tony, had come to me and said, I think you're overdoing it, do you think you have a problem, blah, blah, blah. Because I would show problems in different ways. I would call you at 9:30 at night on a Sunday and just blather, drunken. I mean, that's pretty obvious what the hell is going on. And even though my boss was protective, is a good guy, I ripped into him, I hurt him. And so I'm sitting in my office. This was the Friday I had the meeting. On Wednesday, Larry, the CFO, and Steve, the CEO, came into my office. Now, there's a protocol for when you're going to hire a guy, fire a guy, and that is you go into his office. You don't have him come to yours because you might not leave. So that way, they go into my office, they do their thing, and they can leave. So Larry sits down, Steve is standing, and he says, I think it's time that we parted company. And I said, I think I understand. And I understood it because they kept me on for a year longer than they really should have. They were actually very nice to me. I said, well, how much time do I have? I said, well, if you could be out of here by Thursday or Friday. I said, well, I'll be out of here tomorrow. I'll just pack my stuff. There's not a lot to go on. I had the presence of mind before I left to go to Steve and say, I have a question for you, a request. He said, sure. I said, I brought this little business into the agency. It's very small. And it's called Salon Systems. And it was run by a friend of my girlfriend. And I had done some marketing work for them. I did some database work for them, which actually was a new model that kind of cracked the code in the space. And I presented the approach to the national convention of Aveda salon owners, concept salon owners. There were about 500 in the audience. And Horst Rechelbacher, who owned Aveda at the time and later sold it to Revlon, he has since passed away. Melissa Shaban, as VP of Marketing, sponsored me and thought I had a good thing. So when she saw what I was doing for the little company, she said, can you do it nationwide? I said, yeah, it's just a decimal point. It's the same principle. I just, the math is the same. I don't have to explain it, but the model's really simple. I used 2 different databases, and I put them together, and I was able to show zip code by zip code what the potential sales of their soft goods would be by type by size of salon, as all that data is available. It's just simple math. It's stuff that, is high school level for us in our business. We do stuff that's a lot more complex than that. I was able to do it. I hired a guy to moonlight for me who worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield, as a data specialist, and back in the day, they were running on supercomputers, big IBMs, and they run all this data. I said, Rex, geez, I've got all this data. It's going to take me forever. He says, I can do it in about a half an hour. I said, well, $25 an hour I paid him, and he was delivering all this data analysis for me. It's amazing, So going forward, I said to him, Steve, can I have that business back for myself, because I need revenue? He said, well, we're going to give you a severance. They gave me a really good severance. Oh, I've only been there 3 years. They were very kind, and he gave me that business back, and then I was able to build that model I was just talking about. So they were very good, but I was out in the street, and I entered treatment the following week. Our podcast is sponsored by safehouserehab.com, a modern approach to recovery. To learn more, visit us at safehouserehab.com.